Someone said to me, if you want us to vote for you in 2024, you must abandon this thing of foreigners. Now I'm prepared to go home. Now I'm fine. I will never take a platform and denounce Africans. I will never do it. If it means votes are going, let them go. Now I'm prepared to go home. But to take a platform and please white minority by pointing a finger at my other fellow black brothers, I'm not going to do that. When I see a Nigerian or a Zimbabwean or a Congolese or Ghanaian, I see myself. EFF can commission internal research to see to what extent is this thing hitting the EFF. But I'm not prepared. I'm not prepared to take a platform and say foreigners must go home. I would rather not be a president of South Africa. I'll be a president of my children at home. We'll practice cabinet there. No, I don't want. I must go and tell these hungry Zimbabweans to live here. And when I tell them to leave, I send them to where? To die. To die. I would rather die with them than to allow them to die alone. If this thing has cost us municipalities and people who say I must resign, I will resign. For Africans, I will resign. For black people, I will resign. I have no problem. I saw some tweet saying, no, the CIC must step down. If it's for this, I'm ready.
It is clear from what you just listened to that Julius Malema's loyalties do not lie with South Africa nor South Africans. He goes as far as asking a question. If I were to send these illegal foreigners, and I'm going to express that in my own language, if I were to send these people who broke the law to come into your country, to disadvantage you, back to their country, I'm sending them back to die, right? I rather die with them. So the question then I have as a South African who beholds poverty of our people because of all these illegal foreigners that are in our country, who must die? Once you ask that question, you will understand Mkhwebane's decision. You will understand Fana Mokoena's decision. You will understand Floyd Shivambu's decision. Once you ask that question, because there is no South African who can pay their allegiance. You know, Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe and even Steve Bandubiko in I Write What I Like, when he talks about black consciousness, Mangaliso Sobukwe talks about Africanism, a definition of what is an African. They both goes at length to explain. Steve Biko explained what is a black man, and he completely de-attaches it from the skin color. The same with Sobukwe. When he talks about Africans, he completely de-attaches it to a skin color. Rather, their focus is on allegiance. A person who owes their allegiance to Africa. You see that? Julius owes his allegiance to every other country but South Africa. Every other country in Africa but South Africa. That, my fellow countrymen, is a very good reason to start questioning whether, remember Julius is from Limpopo. And I have always said, how do we know when someone from Limpopo has crossed the river illegally? How do we know? Seeing that since the African National Congress has taken over, a lot of this has been happening, right? Sure, you may say, yeah, but Julius was born before the African National Congress took over. Fair enough, but that does not mean there were no crossings from Limpopo. We don't know about who his father is. He never speaks publicly about who his father is. And to me, it's very clear. In my mother tongue, Mati Igazilia Jiagnamans, right? That means a blood bond is much stronger, right? Truly speaking. So who is really his biological father? Because clearly he owes his allegiance to Zimbabwe. He owes his allegiance to all these countries in Africa. That is why he is talking about Pan-Africanism, which I strongly believe is nothing but a masquerade, to be honest with you, to cover up the fact that he may actually not be a South African. Is he not a South African? I don't know that for sure, but it's certainly something that is worthy to be investigated upon, just based on his assertions and how consistent his assertions concerning disdaining a country that gave him everything that he has. Remember, Julius is an individual who passed matric, didn't go to school, right? And became, by having a big mouth and tremendous ill discipline and disrespect for adults, became a youth league president of the ANC. And if you read Thuli Madonsela's report, gained illegitimate proceedings from the On Point Engineering. That's why he became a millionaire that was owing SARS 16 to 32 million rands. None of you owes SARS that much. Why? Because you're not business people. You don't have that much money in your bank account. For you to owe SARS 32 million, that must mean a simple 228,000 million. 220, did I say 28,000? Sound like Jacob Zuma. On a serious note though, 228 million rands must have been at your disposal. 228 million rands. How do I get to that? You take the tax rate of business, which is 28%. You take the amount that SARS claims Julius owes them, and then you divide it by the percentage. That's how you get to know how much he was owing for him. So his income before tax was 228 million. You then tax it at 28%, you get how much he owes to SARS. That's the 32 million. And then you ask yourself, a person who's never worked anywhere, who by the time he was 28 years old was staying in a house of 3.5 million, having never worked anywhere, just by being what you call an ANC, do you understand why our country's economy is not growing? Do you understand why everything is going south? Because here is a young man who's never worked anywhere, who's never built anything, who has had through corrupt means, proceedings and money coming into his pocket. Right now, he stays in a cigarette smuggler's house, in Mazoti's house in Sandton. Right now, as we speak. Right? Now, here is a young man who's never worked anywhere, never built anything, right? Advocating that people who came into our country, that's why he doesn't seem to even understand that that behavior is lawlessness. Think about what I'm saying. Advocating for these people to come to our country. Surely people like Floyd, who went to Wits University, and I've been asking this for the longest possible time. What does Floyd see in Julius Malema? Sure, subsequently Julius Malema has gone to university. I give him his props, his flowers for that, because it takes a lot to do that. He subsequently has gone to university. He's got a degree. He's got an honors degree. I think he's got 2 degrees right now as we speak. Bravo. I'm happy for him. And again, presuming that those degrees were attained legally. Because this is a man that is saying people who are here, who are not documented, who are selling powder in our country should be regulated, should be legalized. Right? So people who talk like that generally do not like to observe the law, and we have seen it by the SARS saga against him, which was settled out of court. And many people from the EFF would say, no, Julius, if Julius was owing SARS money, yeah, he did owe SARS money. And I made a video about an hour-long video. It's here. Check it out. And I've given you receipts on that video. I'm not going to do that on this because that's not the purpose of it. He did owe SARS and he did settle. The fact that he settled out of court, a debt of 32 million, should raise questions to any ethical individual, because that's tax evasion. Okay? Now, listen to this.
What is the definition of a foreigner? A foreigner is a person who comes into your country without papers, doesn't have anything to show. That includes you. You are foreigners. Foreigners means visitors.
Did you guys hear that? So for Julius to be able to justify why Nigerians must come here illegally, why the entire African continent should be allowed in South Africa illegally, Julius goes out of his way to gaslight the entirety of his audience, claiming that they too are foreigners in South Africa. And guess what? They believe him. You really must have a room temperature IQ to believe this lie, isn't it? Amazing. Really amazing.
Visitors are people who just come empty-handed with a small bag. When the time permits, they go. That's you. Don't tell me this is your country. Stop hating on your future employers.
Unbelievable. The audacity of the boy to claim that South Africans are foreigners in their own land. And then he says they must stop hating on what? On their future employers. Really, Julius? Are you this idiotic in reality, or are you making a special effort to appear to be an idiot? Where have you ever seen the so-called illegal foreigners in our country employing South Africans? Really? Who has ever established a legal company when they were illegal in this country? Make that make sense. And this is what for me is saddening about the people who are in the EFF. You must literally switch off to listen to Julius, because Julius is such a flip-flopper. He changes his tune and position. Remember, listen to what he's saying here, to what he has said hitherto. I'm going to show you a clip where Julius is now saying foreign nationals should be documented. The same Julius who is saying them not having papers and South Africans who are carrying their passes to attend his meeting are foreigners because they're not carrying any documentation, thereby trying to debunk the whole idea that people should be documented. The same Julius, a month ago, had an interview where he literally now has changed his mind. This is a problem with individuals who are devoid of thinking. And all what they are doing, they are just gobbling down their throat everything that Julius is saying. So I guess for you to be an EFF member, you must be completely bankrupt of your own self. You must be devoid of thinking and independent thought. Many EFF members have not, since they joined the EFF, not have an original thought of themselves, by themselves. This is very akin to what a cult is. And unfortunately, not in this channel, but on my gospel channel, I have a video where I taught about what is a cult. And if you listen to that video, it's about 48 minutes. If you listen to that video from beginning to end, you will understand why EFF in reality should be classified as a cult. Because members of a cult, they simply follow what their pastor is saying, right? Julius is not a pastor, he's a leader. But please understand what I'm saying to you. I'm saying to you, EFF is a cult. Why? It has all the traits of a cult. You literally need to put blinkers on your head, and you need to be able to explain a position which few months ago you did not stand for, you did not believe in, and now today, because the leader, the supreme leader, has actually said it, and he has superior logic, I don't have any logic, I must then go up and explain that position with passion, because the supreme leader has come up with a new position. This is problematic. This is very much against our very constitution that talks about freedom of speech, their autonomy to be able to think, because the speech means, speech is not just spoken word. Speech is literally talking into the thought pattern that informs that which we hear proceeding out of your mouth. I want you to understand that. So hence I'm saying, when you are in a cult, you are literally suspending your constitutional rights of thinking. Because I'm saying to you, the freedom of expression stipulated in paragraph 16 of our constitution, inherent in that speech is the thought pattern that informs the speech itself. And that in our country has been made available for every individual who is free. But members of the EFF are not free to disagree with Julius on any matter. Otherwise, they should walk, right? This to me, I'm saying to you, explains why there is a mass exodus of their leadership. Because these individuals are tired of having their thinking being second guessed by an individual who is a bully, who clearly is not a Democrat. Because Julius has had already more than 2 terms in the EFF as a president. If Julius was in the ANC, he would have been now contesting to say, he would have been contesting for presidency. And if he was in the ANC, he would have long been removed as the president of the ANC. But in the EFF, because that's his own church, which he formed himself, regardless of how many people were around him when they formed, simply because they put him as a leader, he is going to stay that way until Jesus comes. He hasn't said it out so loud in as many terms himself, but I guarantee you this December, 2 months from now, Julius is going to be elected a president for the 3rd term. Are you following me? That is why there is a mass exodus in the EFF. That's why people are leaving. And there's still more people who are going to leave the EFF. Why? It's nauseating to listen to a person hating on their own fellow countrymen, a country that has given him so much. If he was staying in Nigeria, he wouldn't be living the life that he's living in South Africa. If he was staying in Zimbabwe, he wouldn't be living the life he's living in South Africa. And then he dares to make statements like this that are seeking to gaslight fellow South Africans. This is pathetic.
They are the most polite people. Even when they are educated, they still work for small jobs that pay nothing. They don't have pride.
Nigerians and Zimbabweans are the most polite people. Okay, look, I don't know if Julius takes the substances that these Nigerians sells. But the way he is so pro, I wouldn't be shocked if he does. But here he's either on crazy tablets or he's high on something. Nigerians are polite. They don't have pride. Have you met Nigerians? My goodness. That's unbelievable. Shocking. He's now redefining terms, typical of communists. So now he's redefining polite. He's redefining pride. Nigerians have a chip on both their shoulders, the size of Mount Kilimanjaro. And there is nothing polite about their mannerism. I can show you multiple videos on this, but I'm not going to do that. I've already done at least about 2 videos this week about Nigerians. I'm not going to do that over here. But there's nothing polite about them. None whatsoever. Zimbabweans, I may be persuaded, but Zimbabweans are involved in so many crimes in our country. Unfortunately, that is tarnishing their name. Yes, however, Zimbabweans are willing to earn a living by honest means, and most of them, indeed, generally, they are polite. But here, he's not only talking about Zimbabweans, he's talking about Nigerians. You can pick that up in his speech if you were to listen to it from beginning to end.
EFF agrees that we don't want undocumented people in South Africa. How can we say South Africans must get IDs and then welcome people who are not undocumented? Everybody has to be documented so that if any wrongdoing happens.
Did you guys hear that? So the question is, when did he change his mind? Because this interview happened about 2 weeks ago. Today is the 20th of October. So 2 weeks ago would have been around about the 10th of October. So it's this month. It's not even last month. Did you hear what he just said? So when did this penny drop on him? And this is the problem of a leader who has a followership that never ever criticizes him. He has been in the public domain claiming that the borders were imposed on us by Europeans, the imperialists. Africa has no borders. No African is in a foreign land when they move from Cape to Cairo or from Cairo to Cape, whatever you want to say. Nigerians can come to South Africa because South Africa is their home. And there's a video where he says he's a Zimbabwean and he's a Nigerian. Nigerians are him, blah, 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 blah. And they don't need any papers to come to South Africa. They can't be illegal in South Africa because Africa is one, right? With that mentality, he promotes lawlessness. Then having promoted all that lawlessness, and again, I do have a video where I talk about that. Now, he comes out publicly saying this, and all the EFF members are now going to lie to you, try to gaslight us, and saying Julius never said these people should come to our country even if they are not documented. So here he is now for the first time saying, we ask South Africans to have IDs. When did you get this in your head in the first place? When did you understand? Because this is the very reason why we have been for years saying we don't hate foreigners. We have no problem with legal foreigners in our country. We have embraced them. We have been playing football, all manner of sport. They live amongst us. They are professionals. We work with them. Why? Because we can identify them. There is an audit trail. If something happens, you are able to check the fingerprints on the scene of what has happened. Like all South African citizens, the person is an upright tax-paying citizen. When did this come to Julius's head? This is what flip-flopping is all about. You can clearly tell he changes his tune, and when he changes his tune, he doesn't announce publicly that, by the way, this is a change of position from the previous position that I held. And this makes him extremely dangerous because the youth doesn't bother to research the things that he says with his mouth. Can you see that? As a result, they may go around believing he has always said this when that is not the case. I've shown you in this video two different positions that are diametrically opposed that Julius holds. And I'm saying to you, this is actually the very reason why there would have been a mass exodus in the EFF. This explains this.
Of what 44 Johannesburg has informed me that my membership of the EFF has lapsed. And I said, please be informed that I will not renew my membership of the EFF in Ward 44, which is one of the best performing wards in Johannesburg region. I also request to resign my position as Member of Parliament and all positions in the EFF.
Since Shivambu's exit from the EFF, many, including the likes of Mkhwebane, Julius, Busisiwe Mkhwebane, and Fana Mokoena, have followed suit. One analyst believes that those who left had used the party to advance their careers.
I think that EFF is going through a period where it has to clarify even more than before where it stands politically. If we're comparing the EFF and the MK, there is a statement in the letter written by Mkhwebane that it was a place of refuge after she has been, almost spat out by Parliament and the ruling elite. It was a place where she could go. And when the likes of Malema and others were leaving MK, leaving the EFF, my view was that some of these people used the EFF as a halfway station. The EFF had been warehousing ANC members of the Zuma faction for quite some time. Whether the EFF was cognizant of that fact is another matter. But what the EFF should know by now is that they cannot house ANC people there. The people who are in the EFF must be EFF people.
Another analyst is of the view that the departure of other leaders is strategic in harming the EFF.
The departure of Mkhwebane was very interesting because I'm sure the CIC will say has been betrayed because he accommodated Mkhwebane and Jimmy Manu when they had no political homes, it's been quite sad. Most of these people who are leaving, the exodus that has happened, it has happened in a similar way. People leaving from the EFF to Mkhwebane, but they don't leave at once. They leave bit by bit. So it gives me an impression that this is a well-coordinated move, which is really crippling the EFF in a big way. It's a psychological blow as well. In fact, it begs the question about whether others will stick around in the party or not.
Malema has previously warned that he expects more members to follow Shivambu. Natasha Piri, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Where we are, painful as it is.
My question to you is, can you blame people who have an independent thought, people who are critical who have critical reasoning established in them, for leaving the EFF? No, you can't. Because obviously, it must have just dawned on them that Julius is not patriotic. Julius is not pushing the agenda for which they would have formed the EFF. The EFF is called Economic Freedom Fighters. They wanted economic freedom in their lifetime in South Africa. Now, of course, those of you who have listened to my videos, you know I do not subscribe to their ideology at all. Why? I think they are ideologues who are populists. Their main interest really was to parachute themselves into the status that they now own of being celebrities in our country, of earning money through parliament. Remember, these people had no skill. They've never worked anywhere. They've never done anything meaningful. So the easiest thing for them to do was to become freedom fighters during the freedom time. You can't be a radical and a freedom fighter when we are free. We have not been oppressed since 1992. So for you to come out publicly and saying you are a freedom fighter and you are fighting for, what are you fighting for? Because we have a constitution that enshrines our rights, that abolished the supremacy of any tribe over the other a long time ago. So you're saying, no, you're fighting for the poor. So the poor elected you to fight for them. You see, Julius has read a lot of books, obviously, and he parachuted himself to the position that he now holds precisely because he is smart, right? I don't dispute that they have thought deeply about the issue of EFF, and they formed a political party, and they knew that there was this need that existed. That need arose, the void was created by the presidency of Jacob Zuma, because during the presidency of Thabo Mbeki, there could never be an EFF in South Africa. Believe you me, they would have flopped on their first year. They would not have been successful. During the presidency of Mandela, there could never be an EFF in South Africa. They would have flopped. So a void was created by Zuma's government. Are you following me? Zuma's government created the void that is EFF. And this is a problem. That's why we now have them. But remember what I'm saying to you. Their mandate was to fight for freedom in our lifetime for South Africans, because they were claiming South Africans do not own land, South Africans do not own this, and the South Africans are not playing a certain role in their economy. The truth of the matter is, those imbalances of the past are well addressed in the Employment Equity Act. They are well addressed in our Labor Relations Act. They are well addressed in the BBBE, all of those. Hence, from Mandela to Mbeki, and 6.5 million South Africans, black, who are coming from poor backgrounds, were elevated into middle class through well-paying jobs. Strategically, this was done systematically, right? And all of that stopped. Why? Because Zuma couldn't grow the economy. Mandela grew the economy. Mbeki grew the economy by 5% year on year, right? So that's the quickest way to empower black people, by growing the economy and giving them the piece of that. Not wanting to demand a land that belongs to a people whom we have never conquered. That makes absolutely no sense unless you want a bloodshed. Then you become an ordinary failed African state like the rest of the African states that have failed. You get the point? So this is very, very important. The EFF individuals or mass exodus is well expected from all critically reasoning individuals. They will leave EFF. Why? Because one, it's a cult, and now they have come to realize, because sometimes when something happens to you as an individual, you kind of say to yourself, no, maybe I'm imagining things. But in the process of time, you then say to yourself, no, actually, I'm not imagining anything. This is a reality. Are you following me? This is a reality, and this reality is actually very painful. Okay, guys, let me love you and leave you. Have a lovely one. Ciao, ciao.